two legendary heroic hobbits, Bilbo Baggins and Frodo Baggins. From the book The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring Visual Companion. In just a few minutes. Stay tuned. Video Gamers Oasis on YouTube presents podcast mini-series The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring Visual Companion. My reading and commentary. Hello again. Hello. Welcome back to Video Gamers Oasis presents The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring Visual Companion. With all the talk of the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, I thought it would be a great opportunity to get into this really nice old book, picture book I have from the original Peter Jackson film. Depending on how popular this mini podcast series is going to be, we even have the second and third movie installment books if I can get them. So previously in our discussion of this book, we were learning about the hobbits on pages 8, 9, and we learned about Bag End on pages 10 and 11. Now we're going to discuss two famous hobbits, legendary hobbits, heroic hobbits, Bilbo Baggins and Frodo Baggins. Before we begin our discussion of this picture book, please send some likes and loves for The Lord of the Rings. Subscribe to Video Gamers Oasis, click the notification bell. This is usually a gaming channel, but I also do a lot of fantasy and science fiction content on this channel, so I like to have sort of a genre, collected group of genres that a lot of gamers like to enjoy. So we're still on the Hobbits discussion, so we're just going to discuss Frodo and Bilbo, because there's still played
other
by Ian Holm,
hobbits
who was also incidentally was the android.
So here we have a photograph
from the original
of
Alien
the man
movie.
himself, a young version of Bilbo Baggins. I suppose that's from the Hobbit store, because the Hobbit movie. He definitely looks younger than in the Fellowship of the Ring. So this is on page 13. Bilbo Baggins. I've got my reading glasses on, helps me focus, and I got my magnifying glass. Hobbits. Title is let's make sure I just change the lighting here. Yeah, that's much better. Bilbo Baggins. There's a quotation here. Far too eager and curious for a hobbit, most unnatural. That could be Gandalf's quotation. And the first paragraph reads, scholar, poet, maker of songs, wearer of fancy brocade waistcoats, teller of stories and friend to elves, Bilbo Baggins is one of the most famous and long-lived hobbits in the Shire's history. He is best known, however, as an adventurer, a rare thing among hobbits. Following the events, he has been Following the events, he has been recording in his book There and Back Again, a hobbit's tale in which he took part in a heroic epic quest with Gandalf the Wizard and several dwarves, and came back to Hobbiton with a certain ring which he had won in a riddle contest with the creature known as Smeagol, or Gollum. Many of his neighbors and some of his relatives now refer to him as quote-unquote Mad Baggins as a result of these adventures. Next paragraph. 60 years after returning from his journey, Bilbo celebrated his 111st birthday and passed all his worldly goods to his young relative Frodo, choosing instead to travel to the elven refuge of Rivendell, there to complete his great work in tranquility, and to study elven lore in the company of Elrond Half-11. And here's a close-up photograph of a much older Bilbo Baggins chomping on some food, some dinner. And the quotation on the bottom reads, "The road goes ever on and on, down from the door where it began. Now far ahead the road is gone, and I must follow, if I can." There's a legendary Frodo Baggins. I remember in school, high school, I mentioned this before, I studied the original Hobbit by Tolkien, and it was such an exciting story. He was quite unusual of all the other hobbits, because he was the one who was brave enough to break away from the usual farming, fishing, eating, smoking pipe weed around the fire. He went with the fellow dwarves and Gandalf to search on a quest. Eventually, he defeated Smaug the dragon, and he also obtained the ring from Gollum. So he was quite a unique hobbit, because most hobbits did not have the courage to do what he did. Moving on to the next chapter, Frodo Baggins.
Frodo Baggins is
immediate
performed by
descendant or
Elijah Wood
relative who's
in
going
the
to
original
inherit
movie,
everything he
Lord of
has.
the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring.
Frodo Baggins. He's the hero of the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Rings. It is a dangerous business, Frodo, going out of your door. So on page 14, first paragraph. Orphaned at a young age, Frodo Baggins was adopted by the hobbit he knows as Uncle Bilbo. Bilbo brought Frodo to live with him at his large house at Bag End, not out of charity, but because he was the only one out of all his many relations to show any spirit. Frodo has grown up into a serious, sensitive, and intelligent lad, fascinated by Bilbo's library and by stories of his exotic travels across Middle-earth. An apt pupil, Frodo has even learned to read and speak a little of the Elvish language, an ability that will earn him the name, quote-unquote, Elvalon, or elf friend. Next paragraph. However, many of the inhabitants of Hobbiton are rather of the opinion that since he has spent so much time having his head turned by fanciful tales of elves and dwarves and dragons, Frodo is not as practical a hobbit as he should be, and barely has the sense to know a Swede from a turnip. Or is that Swede? S-W-E-D-E, Swede. From a turnip, as the Shire saying goes. So here's a photograph of Frodo on the bottom of page 14. And there's a bit of a light illumination from the ring, the one ring on his face. Kind of lights up his face, almost like neon. And here's another photograph of Frodo in a tree, enjoying some pipe smoke, pipe weed, that's what they call it. Next paragraph on page 15. Despite this, Frodo has wandered far and wide around Hobbiton, exploring the highways and byways of the Shire with his friend Sam Gamgee, and as a result has himself developed something of a taste for travel, which is as well, since he will be called upon to undertake a long journey. Next paragraph. When Bilbo Baggins decides to leave Hobbiton to spend time among the elves, he leaves not only the house at Bag End, but also the rest of his possessions, including a certain ring, to Frodo, who must bear it out of the Shire and way beyond. Here's a quotation from Gandalf. Even the smallest person can change the course of the future. Next paragraph. Although it may look no more than a harmless gold band, the ring is a heavy burden indeed, with its constant temptations and whisperings of black speech, the language of Mordor. It has the power to draw the attention of the enemy's servants, and is the constant focus of Sauron's seeking eye. Always the ring wishes to return to its maker. Next paragraph and next column. Whoever bears it will be in constant danger. For his protection, Frodo will receive from Bilbo an elvish-made sword known as Sting, a magical weapon which has a blade that glows blue to warn that orcs are close, and a mail shirt made from a marvelous substance called mithril, a metal mined from deep and secret places by the dwarves. As light as a feather, but as hard as dragon scales, it can be concealed beneath clothing, yet will turn the fiercest blade. It was once given to Bilbo by the dwarf king Thorin. And here we have a photograph on page 15 on the bottom right corner of Frodo holding Sting, the legendary sword that glows blue every time orcs are near. And there you have it, folks. That was our reading of the two main hobbits in the story, Frodo and Bilbo. Tune in next time. We're going to learn about Samwise Gamgee on page 16 and Meriadoc Brandybuck on page 18. I certainly had a good time learning about these characters, and I'm excited about learning more about them next week. So thanks so much for tuning in. We've been reading this illustrated picture book, visual companion of Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. It's a great book. I'm having a lot of good time, a lot of fun going back in time. I remember seeing The Lord of the Rings with my dad many years ago in the theater and having such a good time, The Fellowship of the Ring. And I remember jumping in fear and fright when Bilbo almost turns demonic because he's after Frodo's ring. His eyeballs start to pop out of his socket and he starts to get fangs. And then he goes back to normal because of the influence of the ring. But I remember having such a great time with the story and the characters. From the very beginning, it was a very exciting and emotionally involving fantasy story from the very beginning. So this book kind of brings back a lot of memories. Thanks for watching. We're going to continue on next week as usual. Send some likes, send some love for the fantasy epic Lord of the Rings by Tolkien. Subscribe to Video Gamers Oasis, click the notification bell. I'm Jeremy, thanking you for your attention, and I'm going to enjoy a little bit of hot herbal tea in just a few minutes. I've been
steeping this tea, and it's too hot to drink right now. So I'm going to be editing this video right after I finish this reading. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.